Hi, today I'm gonna show you how to knit this crop top V-neck vest. Let's get started. Hello everyone. First of all, please check my description box for all the details, such as yarn, needle, and written pattern. This is top-down, complete, seamless V-neck vest. I actually knitted it round neck vest, before, and it pretty much same idea. The rule number 1, plan ahead. Rule number 2, count every rows. This is important rules. And this blue one, the round neck one, is the one, I knitted it before. And as I told you, the concepts are same. Just the difference is V-neck and the length of the vest. Again, on the side, there's no seam. Usually, they sew on the side or top of the vest, right? And there's a little line, but that's not the seam. That's the line for short rows. Knitting part is quite easy because, I use only regular, technique pretty much except the maybe short row, but short row, it's not that hard. And I will show you step by step. Difficult part is making a plan. How wide you want and how long you want. Well, the length, it's not that problem. The wide, and math kicks in. So that's the little bit, pain in the neck. And this time I use number 3 yarn, little bit thinner than one before, but nothing wrong. And because I made the crop, shorter length of the vest, so I used only less than 2 balls of yarn, okay? And first of all, you have to make a swatch. I made the swatch, 4 by maybe 3 with the 4mm needle, which I knit for the body part, right? And then count stitches within 4 inch. Okay? Whenever you knit your swatch, you put the ruler like this, and you have to count stitches, which is across, within 4 inch. You have to take a gauge because you need this number for your plan. Here comes my plan. This is back of my t-shirt. I need 2 measurement, which is widest part and just underneath of the neck opening, also the swatch. Within 4 inch, I have 22 stitches. Then let's do the math. So first of all, I need 19 inch, the widest part. And top part, just below the neckline, I need 12 inch. Let's do the math. I have a 22 stitches within 4 inch. Then what about 19 inch and 12 inch? Let's do the 19 inch first. 4 inches versus 19 inch equal 22 stitch versus, I don't know, X. So X equal 19 times 22 divided by 4, which is 104. So in other words, if I want to knit 19 inch, I have to have 104 stitches total. What about top part? 12 inch. 4 versus 12 equal 22 versus x. So x equal 12 times 22 divided by 4 is 66. And now why I did the math 2 times and figured it out 2 numbers, because I want to know how many stitches I should increase to create the arm opening curve. Okay, 12-inch top part I started, and then going down, then start increasing a little bit, and ended up I have 104 stitch at the very bottom of the increasing, right? So 604 minus 66 is 38, and I don't like that number. So I decide I am going to change the the top number from 66 to 64, which means exact 40 stitches difference. You know what I'm saying? So 40 stitch for both, right? Together. So 20 left and 20 stitch on right. Total of 40. You know what I'm saying? So start with 64 and adding up 20, which is 40, ended up 104. That's why you need 2 measurement to figure it out how many, stitch increase. Anyway, as you can see, at the very bottom of the arm opening, there's a kind of, the straight line, which is, adding the new cast to connect the body part. So I said 20 stitches increase each side, but to make the curve, I use only 15 stitch, and at the very bottom, right there, whenever I connect both front and back, I add 5 each, total of 10. You know what I'm saying? I will explain later, more detail. So you just have to make sure the cast on number. That green line is your start, right? So my cast on number is 64. And those 2 measurement, it's really up to you, okay? You can actually measure yourself, or if you're knitting for somebody else, grab their, the t-shirt and measure. And the top part, which is the 2 shoulder and neck, you don't really have to divide by 3. So the cast on number doesn't have to be multiple of 3. As you can see, my both shoulder only have 18 stitch, right? So, I actually divided by 3 first. 64 divided by 3 is 21, but 21, 22, 21, something like that. I didn't really like that. So I, move around some stitches, and I decide 18 stitches for shoulder, and rest of them should be neck, right? And then neck, the stitch must be multiple of 2. All right? And this neck stitch is kind of important, 28. This is the front piece of the vest, right? V shape. And you're actually knitting from top, which means you're increasing slowly, half and half. So 28 divided by 2 is 14. So increase 14 stitch on left side and right side. And then I am going to increase 1 stitch every 3 rows, which means I will end up knit 14 times 3 equal 42 rows to complete this V-neck. Why I'm talking about this now? Because I want you to think how big you want for the the V-neck. If the neck stitch, which is the back of the neck, is much less than 28, like 18 stitch, let's say 18 stitch divided by 2 is 9, right? So 9 times 3 is 27. So 27 rows to create the V-neck, which means it's going to be very small V-neck. You know what I'm saying? So dividing those shoulder and neck part is kind of important. I thought about it, after I finished this project, and I could make a little bit bigger, V-neck. Anyway, so now I want to tell you how I knit. So green line is the start, and knitting kind of, downwards, and then increase. And whenever you finish increase, stop right there. And then move on to left back shoulder and create the short rib, kind of, the kind of slope, right? And then after you make a slope, move on to front piece, left side, and then start creating the V, the half of the V-neck, right? And whenever you're done the increase for V-neck, start with the right shoulder and then same thing, increasing and stop right there. Whenever you finish, you connect in the mid stitch and you knit back and forth, then increase. And whenever you increase, finish, stop right there, and then connect front and back, then just knit in round, then make a rib, something like that. So finally, let's start. Cast on. According to my math, I make 64. Again, this cast on number must be multiple of 2. And please use contrast color of yarn to create cast on, because again, it's going to be complete seamless, and I don't really want to knit up, as much as possible. So use, same type of the yarn, but different color, and then make a cast. And after you make cast, you can cut the, yarn, and then push to the other side, because I want to start with knitting side. It doesn't really matter, but I like this way because if I see at the very bottom of the stitch, I can tell which side you're on, right? So row number 1, right side, all knit. Row number 2, all purl. Now you're using main yarn, okay? And then repeat row number 1 and row number 2 until your desired length where arm opening increasing starts, which is 30 rows before end of the arm opening. As I told you, I am going to increase only 15 stitch, right? Increase on right side and not increasing wrong side. So I need 30 rows to increase 15 stitch. Here's my t-shirt. I use medium size. I purchased it from the Michaels the other day, and I would like to make a plan ahead. So what's the plan? The plan is where I should stop arm opening. So using my t-shirt and decide where I want to stop. So there's a sleeve, and I think 1 or 1.5 inch below the t-shirt sleeve. That's my idea. Anyway, oh, by the way, the project itself, it looks a little bit smaller than t-shirt, but don't worry about it. I will end it up at the hem around the arms and neck. So it's gonna be my size. Don't worry about it. Anyway, so again, I told you I need 30 rows to finish 15 stitches increase at the bottom of the arm opening. So now I have 40 rows knitted it. So let's use this as sample. So 30 rows, which is a little bit less than what I knitted it, right? So here's the thing. Well, hold it half, which is 20 rows, and fold another half, so that's gotta be 30 rows. You don't really have to be so accurate, but anyway, that's 30 rows, and where the needle is, that's gonna be the bottom of the arm opening. So that's where I wanna end. So which means the top of that project, that's the where I start. That's the one. That's the where I start increasing. You know what I'm saying? You can actually do the math to find out how many rows I should, knit before increasing if you take a gauge. But, I didn't really want to do that because, it's easy, right? Just to, put the project on top of my t-shirt, and then okay, maybe here's I should start increasing, then ended up right here. So now I put the ruler, and that's where I should start the increasing. So I'm gonna actually knit maybe an inch more. There you go. You don't really have to think too hard. Especially, I was gonna knit the loose vest. If you wanna knit kind of fit vest, that's different story, right? Anyway, um, just make a plan. Any way you wanna do that, you can use the math, or you can do like I did. Knit 30 or 40 rows, and put that on your t-shirt and make sure where you want to start, blah blah blah. So I ended up knitted it 50 rows, which means I just finished the wrong side because um, the row number 1 was on the right side, and row number 2 was all purl, wrong side, right? So which means finish 50 rows means I just finished wrong side. Now I'm on right side. and I am going to start increasing now. And again, you have to count every row you knit. All right? So, increasing row number 1, right side, knit 1, and then next make 1 right. Using the running thread in between first and second stitch. With left or right needle, either way, just hook onto left needle and then knit there. The V shape was out front, so I knit that V shape. And then after that, knit until last 1 stitch. And then the other side, I am going to do make 1 left. Right there. And I'll show you a couple more times, so don't worry about it. Knit until 1 last stitch. Super easy. And then, the increasing row number 2, all purl. No increasing. Anyway, knit, then there's 1 last stitch, so using the running thread and pick up the thread the other way. Now V shape is at the back. It's a little bit tough to see, but you need that V shape. So using the back loop to knit. And again, repeat increasing row number 1 and row number 2. And this is important. Total of 14 times increasing plus 1 more increase, which means I am going to finish on increasing row number 1. So total of 29 rows instead of 30 rows. And I will tell you why, but you have to, subtract 1 row. Here comes make 1 right. I'm gonna show you one more time. Knit 1, and here comes make 1 right. Using running thread, pick up and hook onto left needle and V shape out front. And then knit that V shape, which means front loop. This is make 1 right. Increasing kind of towards to right side, right shifting. This is make 1 right. Then I am going to show you make 1 left one more time. There we go. So now shifting left side, so make 1 left. Pick up the running thread and then create the V shape at the back. So like that. There you go, V shape at the back. So using that back loop to knit 1. There you go. This is make 1 left. There you go. So slowly increasing. Right side towards the right, left side towards the left. So I finish increasing. Again, I stop 29th row. So far, I knit 50 plus 29, total of 70 9 from the cast on. Now I'm gonna move on to shoulder part. So I'm going to transfer all the stitch onto scrap yarn. With the tapestry needle and transfer all the stitch onto scrap yarn. And then on top part, now you have to transfer all the top stitch onto needle. So can you see the stitches in between red, cast on yarn? This is the reason why I told you to use contrast color, because it's much easier to see stitches in between red yarn, right? So picking up those stitch. So I started 64 cast on, right? So I have to pick up 64 stitches like that and pick up all the 64 stitch, then remove the cast on red yarn. So pick up, count, make sure you have right number, then remove the cast on yarn. Here comes. I counted and there were 64. So I remove red yarn. And I recommend not to cut the yarn because you don't want to cut, main stitch, right? So you can, just take your time. I was using kind of stiff yarn, so it was kind of hard to, remove it, but just be patient. All right? And after this, you have to divide by 3. Doesn't have to be, complete even, right? So again, 64 divided by 3 is 21 something, right? And I adjust the number. So 18 stitches for both shoulder and rest of the stitch, which is 28 stitch for the neck. And for the neck has to be multiple of 2 because later on I have to divide by 2. So I could do 16 stitch for shoulder and then 32 stitches for neck as well. I thought about it after I finish, but I'm actually happy with my projects, but I could have done that anyway. So left shoulder I am going to start with. So rest of them transfer stitch to the stitch holder. First 18 stitch for right shoulder onto one stitch holder, and then next 28 stitch for the neck, second stitch holder. You can use the one scrap yarn, but this way easier later. Anyway, start with left shoulder. This is important. left side of the neck, I am going to create little curve, with some decreasing stitch. And then using the short row to create that, little slope. For the short row technique, you can use any short row technique. If you like the German short row, fine. But I'm going to use the wrap and turn short row. Sounds and looks complicated, but it's super easy. So, I will do step by step from row number 1 till row number 8. So you don't have to worry about it. You just do exactly same as I do. All right? So first of all, SSK. This is nothing to do with short row. I just want to create the little curve, left side of the neck, right? So SSK and knit 2. After knit 2, short row kicks in, yarn front. And slip 1 purlwise. Then yarn back. Did you see? I just wrapped the 1 stitch, then transfer 1 stitch back. Now there is wrap there, right? Then turn. This is row number 2 already. Wrong side, all purl. There's not too many stitch, 3 stitch. Then turn. Row number 3. SSK to create the curve again. And knit until wrap stitch. So wrap stitch, easy to see, is there's a gap. The 1 stitch before the gap, that's the wrap stitch. Okay, that's the gap, right? So knit until wrap stitch, which means knit 1. Then here comes wrap stitch. You unwrap it. So grab that wrap, and grab that stitch and knit those 2 like a SSK. I'll show you a few more times, so don't worry about it. That's unwrap. So after unwrap, knit 2, then wrap. Yarn front, slip 1 purlwise, yarn back. I just did wrap, then transfer that stitch back, then turn. Row number 4, all purl until the end. Then turn row number 5, another SSK. This is the last SSK. So SSK, I did 3 times, right? Remember. And knit until wrap stitch. So where's the wrap stitch? So look for the gap. There we go. So in front of the gap, that's the wrap stitch. So knit until wrap stitch. There you go. Grab the wrap and grab the stitch on the left needle. There you go, like that. And then put the left needle back, then knit 2 together. This is unwrap. Then after unwrap, knit 2. Oh, stitch is backwards, so there you go, knit 2 and wrap, which is yarn front, slip 1 purlwise and wrap, then turn around then purl. This is row number 6. And 2 more rows to finish. Hang in there. Row number 7. Knit until wrap stitch as usual, and after the unwrap, last wrap coming. Knit until wrap stitch, and you probably know what you have to do. Pick up the wrap, get the stitch from the left needle, put the left needle back, then knit 2 together. Then knit 2. My stitch were kind of twisted, so, and yarn front and slip 1 purl and transfer back, then turn around. And row number 8, or purl. This is it. The short row has been done, and which means this is end of left back piece. So let's see. There you go. Can you see the kind of slope, right? And I knitted it total of 50 plus 29. That's an increasing for arm, and 8 rows for short row. So total of 87 rows. And on the first row of the front piece, there's gotta be unwrap. You have to, unwrap the stitch, right? Remember that. Also, please count shoulder stitch. I have 15. Well, I started with 18 stitch minus 3, right? Because I did 3 SSK to create the, the carve for neck. So, should be 15. 18 minus 3, 15. There you go. This is important. Let's stop right there and let me tell you what I'm going to do. First of all, I am going to knit half of the V-neck shape, right? Which means I have to think how many stitches I have to increase. Okay? Half of my neck stitch, which is 28 divided by 2, 14. 14 plus 3. What does the 3 means? The 3 SSK to create the neck curve earlier, right? So 14 plus 3, 17. That's how many stitches I have to increase for left side. Obviously, same number for right side too, because, half and half. And why I have to do this? Because I have to match the stitch count for back and front. After the V neck shape created, the stitch count has to be same number as back side, which for me 64 cast. So 32 for left side and 32 for right side. And my description says 17 times 3. Why? I am going to increase 1 stitch every 3 rows. That's why I figured it out. 17 times 3 equal 51. That's the row count when I finish the V neck completely. 87 rows for back minus 51 rows to finish the V neck, which is 36 rows differences, which means after the V neck, you do stockinette stitch 6 rows or something, and then start increasing. You really have to think this because, you might have to, create the V-neck shape at the same time arm carve, right? So you have to make sure about that. Anyway, let's start. The left front piece row number 1, knit 1 and make 1 right because the increasing shifting towards the right. So I'm not gonna, show you too much about this because you already know make 1 right? And then knit till end. However, the row number 1, this time you have wrap stitch, right? So you have to unwrap. Only, the really first row. That's the, wrap stitch. Then I just did unwrap. Then knit. I'm actually using back loop because my, the stitch is kind of twisted. So if your stitch is not twisted, just regular knit. And then flip, turn the work, then all purl, and the row number 3 should be all knit. Meet you row number 4. There we go. Now I have to increase on purl side. So purl until last 1 stitch. Because do you remember you have to increase on the side of the V-neck. So you turn the work, right? So now you have to increase at the end on purl side. So you really have to think. 1 more stitch. There you go. Then make 1 left purl. Pick up the running thread and hook onto left needle like that. There you go. The running thread is shifting left side, right? That's the make 1 left purl, which means V shape at the back. So you have to knit that V shape, which is back loop, but back loop from back. This is a little bit awkward, but there we go. Once you get used to it, it's not that hard. So make 1 left purl, then purl 1 to finish. Then row number 5 and row number 6 is knit on right side and purl on wrong side. And you just have to repeat row number 1 to row number 6. But row number 1, you had wrap, but only the first, row. And you just have to, increase whatever you have to, increase. For me, 17 stitch until row 51, right? And stitch count should be 32, the half of my, the cast on number. This, the shoulder part, super easy because, I had only 15 stitch to start, right? So it's going to be so quick to create the half of the, V-neck. You just have to, take your time, make sure which side you have to increase, stuff like that, right? And again, I could have, bigger V-neck opening. So, you really have to make sure at the very beginning. You can't fix it here anymore. Well, you could, but, I don't want to talk about it today. So, Again, rule number 1, plan ahead. That's very crucial. Anyway, next clip, I want to show you one more time how to do make one left purl. Okay, so purl until last stitch and use the running thread to create the another stitch, right? So pick up, then hook onto left needle, and the running thread is shifting left side. That's always the big rule for this make one left and right. And using back loop from back. This is a little bit awkward, but there you go. That's how you do it. And purl. This is make one left purl. Then one last stitch, just purl. And you just have to do it. And 17 stitch to increase. Row 51 will be the last, which means I finish on row number 3. I'm actually knitting on row number 3, which is 51 row. And after this, I cut the working yarn and transfer all the stitch onto stitch holder. You can use the scrap yarn. By the way, after this, I got so confused because until now, I just have to count the, the rows, right? But now, from now on, I have to make sure that the row count has to be matched with left side. And I got so confused. So I would recommend you to make some kind of the row count note or something. I'll show you because I made it one for myself to make sure everything is, on the same level. I seriously got confused. And if you, make one like that, it's going to be so easy. Anyway, I just finished row number 3. Can you see, I haven't started the arm increasing, but I finished the, half of the V shape. And I do exactly same thing, on the right side. However, the right side, I haven't finished the back piece, which is short rows, right? So I'm actually just showing you, the V shape is, finished. And after a few rows, the arm increasing starts. I cut the working yarn. I, left kind of long tail for just in case I have to, fix something, right? And then, like I told you earlier, I am going to transfer all the stitch and make sure I have 32 stitch count. I told you half of, my cast on, right? 32 for left and 32 for right, and total of 64. Does that make sense? And I kind of warned you that I got so confused, right? But if you actually make plan carefully and maybe make the, row count note, you shouldn't be scared of. It's easy. I didn't really have the note at the first. I was thinking in my head, but, here and there, I did some chores and I forgot. Then there's little confusion. Anyway, let's do the, right shoulder. First of all, transfer all the stitch. And then now, short row kicks in. And short row means the close to neck side has to be higher, right? So this time, I can't start on right side. I have to start with wrong side. That's why later on I got confused because, the stitch count starts kind of different side. But again, you don't have to be so worried. Anyway, short row, right side, row number 1, wrong side. Purl 2 together to start. To create the, the back of the neck shape. This is nothing to do with short row, but okay, remember. After purl 2 together, purl 2. Then let's do the wrapping thing. Now, yarn is front, right? So put the yarn back. Yarn means working yarn, back. And then slip 1 purlwise. It's going to be same. And then yarn front. And I just did wrap. So let's transfer that wrapping stitch, back to left needle. There we go. Then turn. Row number 2, right side. This time all knit. And row number 3, turn, wrong side. Same thing, purl 2 together. I did 3 times of SSK, right? So I have to do same thing. So this is second time of the purl 2 together. And then purl until the wrap stitch, which means, just before the gap, that's the wrap stitch. So purl 1, then let's unwrap. Unwrapping from the back loop. It's going to be easy. Pick up that wrap, right? And hook onto left needle this time. There you go, like that. Then purl 2 together. Maybe easier than, the knitting part, And then purl 2, then let's do the, not unwrap, wrap. So yarn back. Slip 1 purlwise, then yarn front. Then transfer 1 stitch back, then turn. Row number 4, all knit. Easy, isn't it? Then turn. Row number 5, last purl 2 together. This is the third purl 2 together. After this, my stitch count should be 15. And then purl until the wrap stitch. You know where the wrap stitch now. 1 before the gap. So purl until wrap stitch. And then let's unwrap from the back. That's the wrap. Sorry, it's not showing really right here. Grab it. Hook onto left needle. There you go. And purl 2 together. This is unwrap. And after that, purl 2. Then let's do wrapping part. Easy. Yarn back. Slip 1 purlwise. Yarn front. It's already wrapped. And transfer back. That's it. And then turn and all knit. And as you probably can think, row number 7, no more purl 2 together, right? So it's easy. And this is going to be last wrapping row. So all purl until wrap stitch. Soon. There we go. I just want to make sure. Yeah, that's right. That's the wrapping. So unwrap, grab from the behind, hook onto left needle, then purl two together. And again, this is going to be last wrapping. So purl two, and then wrap. By the way, even though if you have more stitch for the shoulder, 8 rows is enough to create the shape of the shoulder, because if you add more rows, it's gonna be quite quite sharp slope on the shoulder, and you don't need to. Okay. Anyway, this is the end of the right back piece. Again, you have to count to make sure, right? 50, 29 plus 8, same as, left side, right? So I just did 87 row. Now, front piece start, right side, which means I am going to create half of the V neck shape, right? So, row number 1, wrong side, purl 1, and make 1 right purl. That's a new technique, but super easy actually. Easier than make 1 left purl. Anyway, use the running thread as usual and create the V shape out front. Running thread is shifting right side, right? And then purl front loop. That's it. Much easier, right? And then purl until end. However, this first row, you have to unwrap. Do you remember? You did that for left shoulder as well, right? So just purl until the wrap stitch. Here comes, almost there. After this, no more wrapping, right? So grab that wrapping, hook onto left, then purl two together. And row number 2, right side, all knit. Row number 3, wrong side, all purl. And see you on row number 4. Row number 4. So you have to increase on the side of neck, right? So knit until last 1 stitch. Then make 1 left. And make 1 left with knitting stitch. I'm not going to tell you every detail. You already know. The make 1 left and right, super easy. You have to just create the V shape. I mean, the running thread towards to left or right. This time, left, right? So pick up the running thread and create the, see, left shifting, which means V shape is at the back. So you have to knit back loop. This is make 1 left. Then knit 1. And row number 5 and row number 6, purl on wrong side and knit on right side. And I'll show you make 1 right purl one more time. But this is super easy. So purl 1 to start and make one right purl. So pick up the running thread and there you go, V shape out front. The running thread is, shifting right side and purl front loop like that. That's it. Easy. And again, you have to repeat row number 1 till row number 6 until V-neck has done, which is, again, I stop on row number 3, which is, the 51st row, row 51, and purl side. There you go. I already, increased 17 stitch. So this is 51 row. There you go. Ta-da! V-neck is done. There you go. Now I am going to connect both shoulder. Okay, so next row, 52 row 52, I will connect. So I have to transfer all the stitch onto needle and make sure on the row 52 it's gonna be knitting. So you have to make sure about it. So again, left, right, both 51 rows, right? And then 52nd row has to be right side. Do you know why, the 52nd has to be right side? Because I finish with 87 row for the back, right? And then I am going to connect on row number 88, and row number 88 has to be knitting. This is why row 52, which is even number, has to be right side. Again, if you make the row count note, you know what I mean. Anyway, knitting right side of the shoulder right now, starting row 52. And once you finish right side, you add one new cast as a mid stitch right here. 1. Then start knitting left side. Do you really have to add new cast? My answer is no. Now stitch count is, not matched, but don't worry about it. I will add one stitch for the back piece later on, so don't worry about it. Anyway, finish the left shoulder, and then you just knit back and forth, stockinette stitch until the arm increase starts, right? So on the row 52, I connect right and left shoulder for front piece, right? And after that, I am going to do the stockinette stitch until row 60 for me, because on row 88, I have to finish last increasing for arm, then connect with back piece. So again, row 53 wrong side all purl, row 54 right side all knit, just do the stockinette until row 59 and row 60, that's going to be right side, start increasing. You know what I'm saying? And again, you probably got confused in your head, right? So I am going to show you my little note. Okay, so here comes a row chart. You can, do whatever you want, okay? But this type of the note helps you a lot because, back piece and left and right, shoulder and has to be matched on this, row and start increasing after this and that. So definitely you should make some kind of the note like this. And there you go. Front arm increasing starts. Row 59, wrong side, or purl. And row number 60, right side, right there. Knit one and make one right. If you're knitting right side, obviously, because, the increasing kind of towards the right side, right? And then knit until last one stitch, then make one left, then knit one. You've done this for the back piece, so I'm not going to tell you all the details. And just continue right side and wrong side until 15 stitch increase has done, which is for me row number 88, but I probably stop row number 87. Then I'm gonna have a little chat there. And here comes. There you go. I just finished row number 7, which is wrong side. So now both back and front same level, right? 87. Now I am going to connect front and back because it's same level. And if you don't match one row and you don't want to, redo it, one row, no problem. You're not going to die, right? So you can do that. Anyway, back piece, all the stitches on the scrap yarn, right? So now transfer all the stitch back onto needle. After this, it's gonna be so easy. But remember, for me, the 15th increase for front piece is right on row number 88. So before you connect, you have to finish increasing. Okay? Right now, the both pieces are not connected. Again, I am going to knit row 88 for front and back, but this is my last increasing. So make one right, knit one and make one right, and after that knit all the way down, then make one left, then knit one, then you complete increasing for front piece, then connect. And connection area, I am going to add new cast. There you go. Knit until one last stitch. Almost there. Here comes. Make one left here. And after this, I am going to connect. I'm telling you again. And do you remember earlier at the very beginning, I told you I am going to increase 20 stitch for each side, but I only increase 15 stitch in each side, right? So I need to increase 5 more stitch for front and back. So 5 for front and 5 for back. So 10 stitch I am going to increase this side, left side, and same thing on right side too. And why you want to increase 10 stitch, right here? Well, you can actually increase 20 stitch to create the arm, opening, and then 0 stitch adding, connection part. You can do that, but I like, this way because, the human body, you have obviously thickness, right? So if you have the stitches under armpit area, that's more natural. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, add new cast, which is 10, then start knitting back piece. And back piece, the increasing has been done, right? So no increasing on row 88. Just knit straight over there until, the last. And then again, you will add 5 for back piece and 5 for front. Total of 10 stitches you're going to add. And this, increasing number, if you want to, make it bigger, this is the time. And if you want to make it smaller, this is the time. You did the math, but, maybe this is too big or maybe this is too small for whatever the reason. This is the time to adjust. All right? Anyway, this is end. And how many new cast? 10. I actually add 9 stitch first because do you remember I add the 1 mid stitch, connecting the right and left, shoulder. However, I redo it and I'm actually pointing out the mid, stitch. However, I redo it and I add 10. Then at the very end, I adjust the number, just before the rib start. It's only 1 stitch, but I have to adjust because my rib is knit 1 and purl 1 rib, so it has to be multiple of 2. And now I have multiple of 2 plus 1, so I really have to, adjust later, which is just before the rib. Anyway, so I add biggie marker. This is the last connection, part, right? Because just knit 1 round, end of the row number 88, I add biggie marker. And after this, just knit until your desired length. I didn't knit much, maybe 1.5 inches, something like that, because I want to make it kind of shorter this time, like a crop top. So it's really up to you. You want to cover your butt area, you can make it longer. And I guess, I already finished the knitting, for body and starting the rib. So I changed the needle from 4 to 3.5. I didn't want to change, to 3 millimeter because, I just feel like it. And then start making rib. So start making rib, repeat off, knit 1 and purl 1, right? And do you remember I said, my stitch count right now is multiple of 2 plus 1 because of the I add mid stitch right in the center of the front piece, right? So at the very end of this row, I increase 1 stitch to make it multiple of 2. And the technique I used was knit front and back. So just, making a rib, repeat of knit 1 and purl 1, and I meet you at the very end of this row. You can actually add or decrease to adjust, just a 1 stitch, so you're not gonna worry about it too much. Anyway, 1 last stitch, it's a knit, right? Knit front and back. So I increase 1 stitch, and now I have multiple of 2. Then from the second, row, knit over knit stitch and purl over purl stitch until your desired length. I knit very short because I want to make longer rib. I knitted it about 4-inch for rib. And then cast off. I didn't use the stretchy cast off this time. I just changed the needle, the bigger size, back onto 4 millimeter from 3.5. And then, kind of cast off loosely. And it was okay. It's stretchy enough. But if you knit kind of tight vest, you may want to do stretchy cast off. If you watch my round neck vest, I use that stretchy, cast off technique. So if you want to use stretchy cast off, please watch that video. And here comes end of the cast off. After this, obviously, weave the ends off. And then after that, let's move on to arm rib and neck rib. Almost there. Hang in there. So, I don't know. What do you think about, knitting seamless vest? Top down, complete seamless. I really like it. I don't like seaming. I don't know why I don't like it so much. But at first, knitting this way is kind of weird because I never get used to. But once I knit that round vest, it made sense and much easier. So from now on, I don't think I'm gonna knit 2 pieces and, attach both of it, later on. Anyway, let's do the arm hem. The important thing is, knit up evenly. So I put markers, top and bottom, and, split in half. And then try to knit up evenly, front piece and back piece. You know what I'm saying? And then I knit up like 4 stitch every time. 1, 2, 3, the first, second, third, knit up side by side and then skip one stitch and then knit up, the fourth one, something like that. And one stitch difference, it doesn't really matter. However, has to be multiple of 2. So you can start with knit stitch and end with purl stitch. You know what I'm saying? And if you want to use the knit 2 and purl 2 rib, the stitch count has to be multiple of 4. Anyway, I start knitting up and I just knit up 3rd stitch, and 4th one, you kind of have to skip one stitch space and then, one next to it, you knit up. Okay, too many, the stitch sometimes looks wavy. Also, the rib will kind of standing up. So I don't like that, the result. So this is the, best way. However, for the V-neck, it's different story. So anyway, let's watch this one. I just knit up 3. Oh, I kind of lost. Okay, 1 space and then knit 4th one, something like that. Well, the most important thing is knit up evenly and same number, front and back or top and bottom, whichever half, right? And then don't knit up too many, stitches. That's important. So if you, knit up too many, it's going to be wavy. And, if it's little less, the rib kind of pulling each other. So stay kind of flat. You know what I'm saying? So knit up around, and after this, start making rib, which is repeat of knit 1 and purl 1. In my video, I'm still trying to, explain, but you get it, right? Easily. This is nothing to worry about. And then, you know what? If you didn't really like the result, you can redo it because, it's not that many stitch, right? So just take your time. And knitting up right on the edge, okay? Right on the edge, that's important too. And obviously, you have to count. And right side and left side should be, same number. There you go. I add the beginning marker, and I already started the rib. Knit 1 and purl 1. And if you are doing the first arm opening, you really have to count how many rows you knit because, one side is longer rib and, the other side is shorter. Doesn't make sense, right? So easy. You just have to be very careful on the first row. And from the second row, same as before, knit over knit stitch and purl over purl stitch. Again, cast off, I use the one size bigger, needle. Oh, not one size, half size bigger. But you can use the stretchy cast off as well. So now, let's do neck. So behind the neck, there's the original stitch. And I put the marker right in the center. Because again, I have to knit up same amount, left side and right side. And I gotta tell you one thing. I knit up same as arm, like, the 1, 2, 3, knit up side by side, and one skip, and, the fourth one knit up. I didn't do that this time. I knit as much as I can. So every, knit up, side by side. The reason is, in the center of V-neck, I have to decrease stitch. Okay, I'll show you later. So every row you lost couple stitch. Okay, so if you knit up way less, the neck will be so small. Okay, can you actually look the video right now? I'm actually knitting up same as arm, and I made it. I even knit the rib after this, but I didn't like it at all. So, but I didn't want to shoot the video again, so I used this video, but just knit as much as you can. And then this is right in the center. Don't count. Mid stitch, always one mid stitch. Okay, and I believe I had 45 stitch I knit up, except the the mid stitch and back neck. Okay, so from now I am going to knit same amount, 45. So the total number of the neck stitch is multiple of 2 plus 1. And there we go. Now I have 90 plus 1 plus 28. So 119, including everything. Anyway, so now let's start. After I knit up 45, right side of my, V-neck, the rib start. So I add begin marker there and then start making rib, which is repeat of knit 1 and purl 1 until one last stitch before mid stitch. Nothing to worry about, but there is little trick around that mid stitch, so you really have to see. So knit 1 and purl 1, knit 1, purl 1 until one last stitch before mid stitch. Okay, there we go. So purl, knit, and purl, and one stitch left, right? There you go. I just made the purl, and remove the mid stitch marker, right? And then the mid stitch and one before, slip those two knitwise like that. And then knit 1. That's a 2 slip stitch, right? And knit next one. There we go. And then those 2 slip stitch, PSSO. There we go. And after this, Okay, you gotta see one before, that's the new mid stitch. So one before was purl, so starting with knit, so that's the one, purl, right? And then the next one is new mid stitch, so I put the mid stitch marker back on and then start with knit, because the one before the mid stitch was purl, and start making, knit and purl, knit and purl. And I'll show you second round again. Just keep, making rib, knit purl, and second row, just knit over knit and purl over purl. And here comes, and finish with purl. Okay, and start, second row. Okay, so second round, just knit until one last stitch before the mid stitch marker. Here comes knit, then there's only one left, so remove the stitch marker, right? And don't even think, just those two, slip 2 stitch knitwise like that, and after that knit 1, then PSSO, pass those 2 slip stitch over, and that's the new mid stitch. And then next stitch, you just have to knit over knit and purl over purl. I guess there was a purl, so I made purl, and everything makes sense because one before new, mid stitch, it's now knit, so it makes sense. And I am going to show you, I guess, one more time to make sure. You probably got that already, but I just want to make sure. Here comes, this is third row until one before, remove, and then knit, slip 2 stitch knitwise, then knit next one and PSSO 2 stitch over. Okay, and then knit over knit and purl over purl. Again, every row around the mid stitch you lose 2 stitch, so the rib should be smaller and smaller. So if you make a plan really tight, V-neck shape, it's gonna be really, small V-neck. I did total of 7 times, 7 rows, and then cast off. If this V-neck was too small, you definitely need to do the stretchy cast off. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to put it on, right? But for me, it was perfect size. Little, smaller than I thought. But, I didn't really have to do the stretchy cast off. But I definitely used the one size bigger, half size bigger needle to cast off. But that was enough. Anyway, after cast off, this is it. I hope you enjoy knitting top down complete seamless V-neck vest. All right, thank you for watching. And again, if you don't understand, making your plan, please leave your comment. I will try to help you. However, you have to make swatch. Also, give me true measurement. Alright? So, enjoy knitting. Bye for now.